right, welcome back to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. Whether you're listening to us in the car, watching us on YouTube, or however you're consuming this podcast, we appreciate you. Like, share, subscribe, tell everybody you know. My name's Caleb, and I'm joined with my co-hosts Jeff Amerine and Matthew Ward. How's it going, gentlemen?
Great. Living the dream.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Agreed.
And we're excited today to have with us Kirsten Blowers.
Yes.
Kirsten is serial entrepreneur, owner of Riffraff and City Supply and
Charlie Southern
so
and
much.
all kinds of fun things.
Exactly.
And more probably in the works.
Give us the origin story.
Whole overview of everything.
Absolutely.
So I started Riffraff, which is a women's boutique here on the Fayetteville Square 13 years ago. I was 21 at the time.
Seems like yesterday.
Right? Or 50 years ago. But yes, I started it actually, I had the idea my senior year of college. I say this all the time. I graduated college 2009. It was right in the middle of the recession. Mm-hmm. Things were weird, especially I shouldn't say especially. Things were weird for everyone. But graduating during that time, there was another layer of anxiety with that. And I noticed I was an interior design major. And usually you graduated interior design and you went to work for an architect. And architecture firms were laying off their interior designers because of the recession. So looking at the classes that had graduated before me, through Facebook, because that's our former social media in 2009, I noticed that they were still looking for jobs. Things were dicey. And my parents are both entrepreneurs. My mom's a child care provider. My dad's a food consultant. And they've always instilled resiliency and pivoting just as a way of life. And so the idea came to mind to start my own thing. Pretty ballsy looking back on it. But I had this confidence that I could pull it off, especially if my name was tied to it. I kind of had to because I had pride behind it. So yeah, I talked to my parents a little bit, I have this idea to start a boutique, and not once did they ever doubt that I could do it, which gave me the other boost of confidence that I needed to just go try it. And, if it didn't work, and that's fine. I would probably learn something from it and pivot, but I didn't allow it to not work. So started Riffraff, and then a couple years into that, about 3 years into that, we really started excelling at posting on Facebook and selling items through Facebook, just through comments. Run and ship me a size medium in this. Can you show me more pictures of the item in the background of this one picture? So utilizing Facebook, and at that point, there's no algorithm. So it was purely a grapevine effect. So if your friend Stacy saw this item and she commented, well, then you saw her comment, and it was I want that kind of impulse buy feeling. So we tried to implement that into a web store because overnight, one night, Facebook incorporated an algorithm where you had to cap your number of friends. It's probably all coming back to you now. This is literally 13 years ago. Cap your number of friends and migrate to a Facebook business page. And with that page, only 10% of the people that follow you are going to see your content. So we were used to we had the overhead of sales up here, and within a night, Facebook was like, oh, just kidding, you're now down here. So it was another, oh crap moment, what are we gonna do? But we pivoted, we figured it out, and we implemented a web store. It wasn't easy. At the time, I think I had a team of about 3 or 4 people, but we did it, and it was awesome, and I still admire those days of sitting in a back cement block warehouse and figuring stuff out on our own, and we were only 22, 23, and it was very thrilling. So we started our web store. A couple years after that, we came out with a t-shirt that said love, and as the O, there's a state of Arkansas, and we continually sold out of it. And then we started seeing other boutiques knock it off, which that happens, but it was disheartening and shot our pride a little bit. And like I said, we had the overhead to keep up with this amount of sales. If someone's going to jeopardize that, I got to pivot somewhere because I still have this overhead of payroll and all the supplies that come. You guys get that. So I'm preaching to the choir here. So instead of sending cease and desist letters, that didn't feel right with me, because at the end of the day, we're all human. We're all trying to get moving with our business and make money. I didn't like sending those letters. It just didn't feel right with me. So if I said to myself, if they just want what we have, why don't we give it to them? And so we created a wholesale company, and that's called Charlie Southern. And it's very Southern based, a little bit of a Western aesthetic to it. And then 2 years after that, we created Friday and Saturday, which is more of the opposite wholesale line. And it's more pop culture, girly girl. Kind of, we had these t-shirt ideas that didn't fit into the aesthetic of Charlie Southern. So we implemented and diversified into Friday and Saturday. And right now, at this moment, we're in maybe over 100,000, sorry. That'd be amazing. I wouldn't be sitting here right now. We're in over 1,000 boutiques across the nation, which is really
fantastic.
Cool. We ship it all out of our warehouse that we have on College Avenue right here in Fayetteville. 4 years ago, I got married, and my husband and I started City Supply here in Fayetteville. It's an awesome storefront. We love it. It's more of like, if you were to implement all the things we love into a storefront, that's it. It's like a modern day, old timey mercantile. And then recently, my husband and I bought a house, and we're renovating it for an Airbnb. So we're just doing all the weird things.
It's got a lot of free time.
Yeah, and then we got 2 kids. And then we also like to hang out with each other.
What do you like best about? I mean, it sounds like you've got the itch of the serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
What do you like best about it? About all of it? I mean, just break it down for us.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. This might turn into a therapy session.
We get that a lot.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I'm sure you do. What do I like best about it? I think, when you have, I'm the buyer for Riffraff. I also do all the financials, and then I also own it. And so with that, what does an owner do? They put out fires, they help manage. When there's an issue or a situation we have to address, I hate going into it. Like, that's human nature. Everyone's going to hate it. But I love what we learn from it, because what we learn from it does drive my entrepreneurial spark. And so how can we pivot this? How can we make this a business? How can we make money from this? I think that's the fun part. And also just being like, we succeeded. We put out the fire, and we didn't go out of business, and we're still paying our bills, and we did it. I think that's the thrilling accomplishment for me that keeps me going.
And you've taken this thing for 13 years, and you've built new things, and you've gone through you just survived probably the worst time ever with the pandemic.
Right.
How well positioned were you for that, given that a lot of your business was online? Talk a little bit about what you did to cope and how well positioned you are. I think it'd be really instructive for our listeners.
So yeah, that was 2 years ago this week.
See, it seems like it's been, a month, or sometimes it seems like it's been 20 years.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of flown by. But yeah, it's been 2 years.
And those 2 years have just mushed together into one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just a blur.
Crazy, right? But I do think the rest of our lives is going to be like that now.
Yep.
It was a huge pivot for everyone, and it wasn't just us, it was every industry. But I think everyone can relate to the oh shit moment.
Yeah.
So I literally remember standing in our office. We had a rep come in and brought a rack of clothes for me to go through and buy. And so we had a rep in our office, and we have an open office concept. One of the college interns came in, she goes, U of H is closed for the rest of the year. And we all kind of looked at each other like, no. We literally were out to eat last night.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, Tom Hanks had COVID, and that was it.
Right.
So, it was just very surreal. It was like everything started going slow motion, and then I realized, well, I've got to make the call here. Like, it's on me to direct these people's their way of life, and then my business. And oh crap! So we went into that weekend. I remember my husband and I just talking and being like, what are we going to do? What are even our options? I started talking to our banks, like, what are you guys doing over there? That's going to help us. And talking to other business owners just across the board, even restaurant owners, all the friends that we had, just what are you feeling? What's your gut instinct? So the next Monday, we came in and I said, the U of A is closing. So anyone who's connected is a student at the U of A, they're going home. And not many people here at that time, they were all from Texas or Oklahoma. So I think we had one student that was local. And so I was like, we're going to utilize her. She's going to take the place of everyone else because we're going to close the storefront. So it was what's our main number we need to hit every day to keep the lights on and to keep our full-time people paid. And I was very transparent on what our number needs to be. I was very transparent on what our bills cost, what our bulk payroll number is. I contacted every vendor I could and I said, we need to change from immediate ship to approval. So they would email me and say, we have $2,000 worth of stuff. Do you need it? And I would say yes or no. So pretty much put everything receiving on hold, was very transparent with the team. We pivoted, we worked from home, but everyone took time out of their day to get on socials and push things. What was really pivotal for us is that our wholesale accounts, we can create our own inventory. So when everyone was freaking out about supply chain or warehouses in New York and California closing for apparel and not shipping things out because you physically need people there to ship things out and people aren't at work,
what are you going to do?
You're not getting anything in. The great thing about us was we could create our own t-shirts during that time and sell those. And so we could keep our wholesale afloat and we could keep our retail afloat. And I think that's just a blessing.
You have the ability to screen print?
We were very lucky.
You had your own screen print. So
well, local.
And
they were able to go in and, screen printing's like, we can have 3 people at night, 3 people in the daytime. We're still socially distant, all that kind of good stuff. So we had a little bit more flexibility there. So we just started making t-shirts and collections that people wanted while they were locked in at home with COVID. So we had a sweatshirt that said "Stay home," and we sold 1,000 of those. Stuff like that. We had one that said "Wash your hands, cowboy," and all the proceeds went to Fayetteville Public Schools.
I wish somebody had one that says, "I know I'm on mute."
Oh, yes.
I know I'm on mute.
Oh, hindsight 2020, right? Yeah. But yes, we were very lucky in that
hindsight 2020
point, right? Yeah. And then we also moved all the inventory from our storefront to our online. So our online was able to still sell.
And it was probably rocking, right?
And it was fun because people were at home, and it was actually really exciting.
Yeah.
We've never had more numbers physically sitting on our sites than those 2 weeks initially, and it didn't really dissipate after that for we had 6 months.
Shopping habits changed. A lot of people were like, I don't really need to go in. I just soon order it online.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what was the question?
You answered it. Okay. You answered it. So,
okay, good. So
we did this series about improvise and adapt and overcome right after that to talk about you got to improvise. It's triage. It's like being in an ER room doctor, and you got to figure out what do you got to do to just survive, keep the patient alive. And then based on what you learn, you adapt some things and it becomes part of the long term. And if you do those 2 things well, you'll overcome. That was kind of the whole story. We totally stole that from Clint Eastwood, from Heartbreak Ridge, but it's kind of an informal model of the Marine Corps. But the entrepreneurs that did that best are the ones that got through it and thrived, and maybe even learned some things that they could do more efficiently that they didn't know before.
Keep up to date on the latest news in economic development with the Arkansas Economic Development Commission's Arkansas Inc. newsletter. Each month, get the Arkansas Inc. newsletter, which spotlights the latest project wins and developments throughout the state, delivered to your email. The newsletter features major project announcements, company expansions and relocations, news articles, rankings, and more that highlight why Arkansas is a great state to do business. The newsletter is a snapshot of what AEDC has been working on and what we are following. The Quarterly Tech Trends newsletter highlights the latest news in Arkansas's growing tech sector. You can learn about new Arkansas tech companies, computer science and cybersecurity initiatives, funding and venture capital announcements, and even more. AEDC offers 4 quarterly newsletters: the Food and Beverage Industry Digest, Aerospace and Defense Beacon, Timber Trends, and Tech Trends. To learn more or sign up for a newsletter, visit arkansasedc.com/news.
I mean, I realized who was necessary and who wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
As abrupt as that sounds.
Yeah.
It was very, why have I been paying these 4 people to do nothing? And that's part of owning a business. Right? Yeah. And overhead, different things with that. It was very eye-opening on what do we really need to be paying for. But yeah, it also brought new ideas to the table City Supply didn't have an online store. So the first 2 weeks, actually the first 4 days of lockdown, I was up there 12 hours a day. It felt like probably not that long. Let's be honest. It was probably 6. Trying to just snap pictures of things on my phone and then going home that night, editing them while I was playing with the kids, uploading the pictures, and just slowly building a web store with what we had in stock. And now we have a web store where we didn't before. We'd never thought we wanted to dabble in that for City Supply. We wanted to keep it hometown local. But now people from Little Rock are shopping with us consistently every single week.
Yeah,
I mean, my husband's shipping out packages every single day now. So COVID was great for City Supply in that sense. Like, it really pushed us outside of our bubble. It pushed everyone outside their bubble. Yeah.
When you first started, when you were 21, making sure I read this right, you were starting with a furniture refurbishing store, right? And then you pivoted from there. What did that look like?
So I graduated with interior design degree. I was interning for a local interior designer, actually where Riffraff is now.
Oh, wow.
So very surreal and like very fate-stricken there. But she's incredible. She's still around. Kimberly Harper, she's amazing. I learned a lot from her. But she had one-of-a-kind pieces in her storefront, and they always sold well. And at that point in 2009, 2010, there was a huge trend, especially because Pinterest was brand new and really hot, and the DIY theme on Pinterest was one that you just saw all the time. People were refurnishing their own furniture. So you'd go to flea markets or garage sales and buy a lamp and spray paint it. That was the trend. But not everyone had the bandwidth or artistic ability to do it. I loved it. So that's how Riffraff started. That's why it has the name Riffraff. It's a play on white trash. That's how, so I was just painting and repurposing items and selling them, but there's only so much I could do to keep up with the sales. So I'm one person. And I think this is part of the success of being able to get off the ground early 13 years ago, but I implemented a consignment process with Riffraff. So if you were an artistic person who made something, you could apply to sell your items at Riffraff. I would take 30% of the sale. You get all the rest, but you can you're basically retailing it. So part of that also goes to the rent and the labeling and the payroll to sell it. But I just wanted things in the store because I could only make so much. So we did consignment for a good 3 years to really get our feet off the ground. And then I started implementing jewelry and clothing. And that's when I started seeing that's what was paying the bills. That was the consistent seller. So we shifted. Yeah. And now we're all clothing. A little bit of tabletop items in the storefront here, but not online. But I think a lot of people get stuck in the idea that they have to stick to their original process, and if it shifts, it shifts. Everything shifts.
Why did you start offering the jewelry and the clothes?
I wanted it myself. Yeah. I went to market a couple times and I was like, well, this is fun. I mean, I'm an only child. My mom and I would go shopping every day. I felt like I was so lucky after school to spend time together. We wouldn't necessarily buy anything, but we would go to the mall or go to Hobby Lobby or TJ Maxx. So just buying and that whole picking out what I liked or what other people would like or helping my mom shop, that was just kind of part of my thinking with everything. So when I went to market, I was like, well, I want that. Maybe other people want that. So I tried it a little bit, and that's what sold and paid the bills one month. And I was like, well, that's what we're doing.
Well, there we go.
Yeah. And then I can work less spray painting and maybe not get lung cancer.
So you touched on earlier about just kind of leveraging Facebook originally. I feel like y'all have done a really good job. You have done a good job in leaning into social media and the power of something going viral, or photos of your shirts and those sort of things. Can you talk a little bit about that? How that has impacted? How does it feel to see? Because I know I've seen at least one or two of your shirts go viral on Instagram or something with a meme. So how's that?
Well, there's a lot of things that don't go viral, and I think that's important to touch on too. And so we're able to, you can hear my kids through the
That's
monitor.
all right.
Okay. So you can, we're such a small team and everything's in-house. So we have our designers in-house, our photographers in-house, everything's there. We're not outsourced anywhere. We're able to see that something's going really well, have a new idea that's associated with that at 9 a.m., shoot it at 2 p.m., get it out there at 5 p.m., see the effects of it the very next day. And I think that's something that every small business enjoys and thrives off of. So we've really picked up on that. Like if something gets 5,000 likes, then we're idiots not to act on it. So yeah, I think, and also like our collective age group, I'm the oldest and I'm 35. So you think about that, Instagram and Facebook, more Instagram now, is our way of life. Every time you get a slow minute, you're just slowly picking up the phone and clicking on the Instagram app. And so we're so immersed in it, it becomes second nature. So yeah, when we see something viral, we jump on it and ride it as long as we can. Yeah. I'm not quite there on the TikTok yet, though.
Yeah, I don't even have TikTok.
Yeah. I think it would just take up too much of my time.
Videos.
Yeah, gotta get there.
It's like perpetual 30-second episodes of ridiculousness.
Yes, and
Which I love, right? I mean, I could watch ridiculousness. I could watch that continuously.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's
my wife gets really irritated by what is it, Coco Chanel, the one that's
West
laughs.
Coast Chanel,
She's got the Coco. I don't know what.
She
the
drives me
hell it
nuts
is,
too, but I do love it.
but it's hilarious.
So good.
Be careful, she's a listener.
It's like it's like a better version of Jackass, which I like that too.
Yeah.
So
That's why I will not let myself get TikTok. I'll just spend every waking moment looking at it.
But do you think that that is like, you think there will be a point where it's like, okay, I have to now?
Oh yeah.
With Riffraff, just because of the way,
Yes.
where the people that are on it and how they're using it.
Yes, absolutely. We have a TikTok. I'm just not on it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
I should have practiced that. I personally do not have the app on my phone. Actually, I do. That's a lie too. I need to get on there and be. Long ago, I promised myself that I wouldn't age and I would always keep up with things. And this is one of those examples where I'm like, I gotta get on TikTok so I don't age out of. But yes, we will always stay ahead of the curve. I mean, at this point, we had like 800,000 fans on Facebook, and we barely get on Facebook anymore.
Wow.
So we're always pivoting and loading our content on the platform that is most conducive at that moment. Mm-hmm. It's definitely going to be TikTok soon. Mm-hmm. And I don't think our team will let us lose that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah.
You know, you built these great brands. You've got great businesses. You've been at it 13 years. You're way beyond the statistics for how long a boutique owner typically stays with it. And it's not just boutique. You're doing all these different things. And it seems like you're enjoying the journey. But what does winning look like to you? Where do you want it to go? What comes next?
So there's a point back in 2015 where I added a Dallas store. And it was really, really hard for me mentally to manage that store from 5 hours away. Mm-hmm. And the girls that were working there were wonderful. They did a really, really good job with what they had and the resources they had. It's completely different when I was 5 hours away and I couldn't just step in and help and teach and, be a mentor even, not just a boss, a mentor. And the rent was ridiculously high, if we're being honest. So it was just, I think I bit off more than I could chew. And that's one of our failures. But with it, I decided to close the store. And that was a huge learning point for me because I think I had all this pressure, I knew I had all this pressure of conversation where we were like, well, what's next? What's next for Riffraff? Like, what do you guys are doing so well. What's next?
Glad I could bring you back to that.
yeah.
Sorry about that.
But it's a happy ending now. And I felt this urge of, I've got to do, what is next? I've got to do something. There's this pressure. And so I opened the Dallas store, bit off more than I could chew. I don't think it was fair to anyone involved. We were all being stretched thin. To pay the rent, we were pulling from online, all that kind of stuff that it just wasn't working. mentally, I wasn't there. And so I decided to close it. And it was the first time in my life that I was like, if I don't want to do something, I don't have to do it as the owner, boss person. Like, if I don't want to do something, there's no expectations. I'm the only person that I have to live up to that expectation.
Right. Exactly.
So I closed it, and I remember driving away thinking like, oh, I feel 10 times better. Now I can focus on what is working.
Right. The stuff that brings you energy.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yep.
That's not dragging me through the mud. So that was a huge learning process for me. And if I had to go through that to get there, great. What did you ask me?
You answered.
What's winning?
What
comes next?
Okay. Oh, what comes
next?
Yes. So,
And maybe it's, go ahead.
yes,
I think what's
don't-
winning was the
Yeah. What comes next and what's winning?
What comes
What's
next
winning
is,
feel like?
well, I think there's such a push for you have to keep growing, you have to keep diversifying. But I think there's so much success in hitting a comfortable level and hitting and maintaining.
Just maintaining excellence.
Maintaining is exhausting in itself, and that is a full-time job to keep things going. If you've hit your like, oh, this is awesome, keep going. That's a whole job in itself to maintain. More money, more problems. You know, like if this is healthy and this is good and we're excited every day still and everyone's getting paid what they should be paid and we're still able to move forward with trends, then why are we trying to get up here?
Yeah, to your point, and it's so insightful, and I think it's really, really instructive for the people that are listening. We had a guest on a few years back named Matthew Scott, who's here in town. He runs a marketing agency called The Feed. And he said, we got to that point, it's like, what comes next? What are you doing? He said, well, I've designed this agency such that we're never going to be any bigger than doing $7 million a year in revenue. And I said, well, what's magic about that? Yeah. He said, because at that level, everybody's living well. The staff is of a size that we all know each other, and we don't have the aggravation of it growing to 50 or 100 people.
Yeah.
At that level, we just love it. We're all having fun.
I like that.
And it's rare though, because most times as an entrepreneur, you think if you're not growing, you're dying. And if you're not making it bigger, you're losing.
Right.
But I think it's really healthy to define this is good.
Yeah.
Now I want to do whatever I can to be innovative and keep it in that space. But it's just refreshing to hear that.
Well, and I think, as an entrepreneur, you're still going to have new interests.
Sure.
And those can be something completely different.
Right.
For example, our Airbnb. We want to do, we love renovating
So you can
homes.
experiment on things that are not related, that bring you energy and that you enjoy.
And are not going to take away from what you've built and is working.
Yeah.
So you can still do the fun and trial and error things. But if this is working, and like you said, like, what was his name? Scott?
Matthew Scott.
Yeah. If he's like, everyone here is getting paid well. They're very happy with their lives. We all know each other. That's like the dream, I think.
Yeah.
That's winning.
Yeah, that's winning.
It is winning.
Yeah.
It is winning. I use this story sometimes when they were interviewing Troy Aikman, this former Dallas Cowboy quarterback, and it was sometime after he'd won the second Super Bowl, and he was suffering from this moment of self-doubt and this sort of delusional, this feeling that what was it all about? Because he'd achieved everything you could possibly achieve twice in a sport that he loved, but he hated the journey. He wasn't enjoying himself. And so one of the messages I think that's really important for entrepreneurs and small businesses owners to understand is you got to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Do what you enjoy doing. And it doesn't mean that you have to build $1 billion business to enjoy it. For some people that brings them energy and they want to do that, but it's all in how you define success, I think.
Right. Yeah. I agree.
And too, it sounds like just from the other endeavors that you've pursued, they were organic. It wasn't like you were trying to meet some level of standard or some goal that someone else was trying to craft for you, but something that was organic in what you were experiencing and what you were seeing and what you were pursuing, rather than what somebody else trying to achieve someone else's opinion of what you should do.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, for example, Airbnb, City Supply, we wanted to do that for ourselves. And I think, this is so cliche to say, but if you love yourself, then you don't want more, and if I feel like more and over, it's a form of greed, I feel like. Yeah. And I don't think that's healthy.
Yeah.
Some could argue that, but me personally, I don't find that to be healthy, and I love where I'm at mentally, as a mom, as a woman, as a business owner, as a wife, life is good. I'm going to try not to mess it up.
Yeah. People that get too captivated by growth and bigger and better and all that, they can be one-dimensional, and that's all they have. And some of the angriest, most upset people I've ever known in my career are the ones that's all they focused on.
Yeah.
And they defined everything in their life by the size of the next deal and the size of their bank account.
Yeah,
and they were just awful people that nobody wanted to be around. So that holistic view, I think you got it right.
Well, right before we started our podcast today, you said your kids are what you leave, are your greatest legacy to leave behind.
The only thing that really matters.
Yeah. And so, I think me as a woman right now, I'm in that balance of full-time mom, full-time business owner. And there's days where I'm like, I didn't get everything done I wanted to at work, but I was a good mom.
Yeah.
So it's, it's what, I don't want too much on my plate. Yeah.
Do you think is there going to be a point where, so it sounds like just from hearing you talk about just all the endeavors and all the you're very hands-on. And so as a result, are you thinking about that period in time when you're going to have to hand off more of that, to your point, as your plate gets fuller? What's that process look like, and how do you feel like, I get the sense that you're very hands-on.
Yes, absolutely. So always been hands-on. And then I had a baby. And then I had to realize, I thought, you had a baby and you just strap them to your hip and go back to work. And that's absolutely not what happens. They need a lot more than that. Yeah. So having my daughter, Bo, was the biggest life change for me, obviously, but at work. And I had delegated a little bit going into that. And a lot of things that I do, I'm very blessed I can work from home and do. But my homework time is now an hour and a half at night, if we're being honest, because no one can do, or it's in 15-minute sprints. And so I had to delegate a lot when I had my daughter 4 years ago. And that was hard for me because I was so hands-on, but I survived it and things didn't go to crap. And I think you hit those seasons where I'm one person, I can't take all this on. I have to start trusting people. And for me, that was 3 years in, and then again at 6 years in, and then when I had my daughter. And if you put the right tools in front of people, and I'm not a micromanager either, so I think that has also been very good. Like, if we're all trying to get to the same outcome, however you get there, and if it's different from me, that's fine, as long as we get there. But yes, so I had to delegate a lot, and I had to back away. Now I'm getting to that point where I'm starting to ease back into it. So my kids are starting to go back to school in the next year, and I'll be learning how to take back, what projects do I want to take back or start new. What does that look like? But you're going
to dive in on the stuff that you enjoy.
Right.
If there's stuff that someone else is maybe better suited to do, or it's not your best and highest, then you're not going to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at year 3 and 4, I delegated all the fun stuff from my, buying's fun. I like buying. But like the creative aspect,
sure.
I delegated that. And there's points where I miss it, but shoot, our team does such a good job of it. I'm not touching that now.
Yeah.
And they still ask my opinion and they get my approval on everything. But it's just such a well-oiled machine that I'm not messing that up. What can I bring to the table when I come back is more of my thinking. But yeah, delegating as a business owner is hard.
With all the moving pieces you have in your life, how do you stay organized?
Oh, I don't. There's times where I swear I look at my husband and my eyes are just spinning. And he's like, you're doing a really good job. Every day I wake up and I have a running to-do list on my notes. And that's just how my brain works. Like, every little thing is written down, like, go pick up milk, and then go to Startup Junkie, and then do this. And I just hitting those dots is very almost like a drug for me. And then when I'm laying in bed at night, I move things around. What do I need to do? What are the most important things? And it's all blended. It's work, it's friends, it's family, it's new projects. It's all the same. No day is the same as the day before. But we do have help, and we have a great team who pivots well. Yeah. But it's not organized by any means. Yes. I don't want to give that impression that things are great. Yeah. Anyway.
I think it's about time for that.
Yeah, it's time to land the plane. One of the questions we often ask, we always ask, probably 100% of the time in the last 287 episodes, is if you knew when you first started out, when you were coming out of school, if you had the ability to go back in time, I should say, with what you know now, for that younger self, what would you tell yourself? And with all the wisdom you have now, what advice would you give?
So I'm actually going to steal this from something that happened to me. So I was standing when I was 21 and I was starting Riffraff. I was standing in line to get a sandwich at Panera Bread Company. And I ran into Mr. Mason, that's how I refer to him, who owned Mason's, the boutique on Joyce Avenue. And I worked for him briefly in high school. And I was like, hey, I haven't seen you in forever. How are you doing? We caught up. And he asked me what I was doing now. I was like, well, I'm graduating in May and I'm thinking about starting my own home decor store. Do you have any advice? And he said, whatever you do, do not become a monster. And immediately I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And, at that age and not having any business backing, I was like, don't become an awful person, okay? I'll try my best not to become a raging bitch. So, but at this point, at 13 years in, I get it.
Yeah.
So, and he was speaking from experience himself.
Yeah.
Like whatever, and it goes back to what do you consider as winning? If you start to grow too fast, you can't keep your hands on what's important. Something's got to give. And so it's a slippery slope. So yeah, don't become a monster. I would just kind of maybe tune in and be like, and this is what he means. But yeah, it's like, if you're growing too fast, get your hands on what's important and figure it out. Take time to slow down and see the bigger picture. There were points in the whole Riffraff journey where things really took off and they were exciting and I was riding the wave. But I look back and I'm like, well, but I let this one thing slip, or the Dallas store, or, I didn't take advantage of other opportunities at the time because I was just fully tunnel vision on this one thing. And, growth is not easy to keep up. And so you might have this charge over 6 months and you're up here, and then you look back and you're like, oh, well, we're actually down here and I thought we were up here because I was too busy.
Sure.
So yeah, I would kind of repeat that to myself. I would also say you're going to walk into seasons that are going to look really, really hard, but you're going to learn more than you could ever imagine. And you're always going to be okay. Like at the end of the day, the big picture, you're going to figure it out. Yeah.
That's great.
Great answer. So where are 100,000 listeners in 100 countries, where can they find out more about you, Riffraff, all the other?
You can follow me on Instagram. That would be fun because that's kind of where all of it comes together. So I'm Kirsten Blowers on Instagram. You can search Kirsten Mormon. I'm that too. And you can find Riffraff. We have 2 Instagram accounts, Shop Riffraff, Riffraff Fayetteville. You can follow City Supply Fayetteville. I haven't disclosed what the Instagram account is for our Airbnb, but you come stay here at our Airbnb and shop our 2 stores, and then you might run into me too. But yeah, we have 2 online stores you can shop from, and then it's all mushed together on my own personal Instagram.
Awesome.
Is that a good answer?
Yeah, it's great. We'll put it in the show notes.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me.
It was great to catch up.
This was great. Yeah. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. I'm honored.
Ecosystem builders, entrepreneurs, chambers of commerce, mayors. If you're interested in taking your economic future into your own hands, we've got a book that can help you. Creating Startup Junkies, Building Sustainable Venture Ecosystems in Unexpected Places is the guide. It's a little bit inspiration. It's a little bit toolkit. What it will allow you to do is take your economic future into your own hands and build a sustainable small business, innovation, and entrepreneurial ecosystem in your backyard. If you'd like to hear more, check out creatingstartupjunkies.com. The Startup Junkie podcast reaches over 100 countries and has had over 100,000 downloads. If you're interested in reaching some of the most motivated and engaged innovators and entrepreneurs on a worldwide basis, give us a shout.